So, you've decided on your first army and you've maybe bought a few miniatures. Well, what now? Well, it's time to decide what's going to decimate your wallet next. I mean, what miniatures do you want to buy for your first or fifth army? Since besides assembling and painting miniatures, making a functioning army is also part of the hobby. So let's talk about it. But welcome back everyone, it's me the Warhammer complainy guy, Revan/Handy, destroyer of wallets, and maker of terrible financial decisions. So if you watched my previous video for how to choose your first army, let's now talk about how you would build out that army to make a functioning list. Well, let me give some advice to take into consideration, and you can skip to those chapters of the video if you want. But if you want to be a Giga Chad, just watch the entire video because the last two did horribly and I'm totally not beginning to lose all hope for my YouTube career, which is also why this video isn't 20 minutes long. But if YouTube isn't pushing my videos even though you subscribed or hit the bell, my video upload schedule is every other week on Sunday at this time depending on your time zone. But first, you know the drill, follow the rule of cool. The rule of cool will always supersede meta if you want to have fun playing Warhammer. The whole reason I have a lot of the units I own, including the Warlord Titans Stop Asking, were all chosen because I thought the units were cool. I just got lucky that a lot of the Space Marine units I bought lined up with being useful in a Dark Angels list to some degree. Knights doesn't really matter because I own pretty much all of them except for 3, Forge World and Plastic. If I were to compare all the armies I own, the easiest to build a list for excluding Knights is Custodes, since the amount of units is small and they all fill out certain roles. And of course, being me, I needed all the cool Forge World units too. The next thing you need to consider when building an army is that some of the units you think look cool might not have very great rules while others might. Again, what you buy is all up to you and how you want to enjoy the game, because having fun is more important than being a meta slave, but each unit in this game fills out certain niches that they thrive in. For example, some units are better at shooting than they are at melee, and some units are better for anti-tank while others are better at anti-infantry. You want to pay attention to how these units function as an army, so you don't have an army that skews too heavily in one direction that might not synergize with your army's detachment. You can build lists that do, and there are armies that focus on melee or just shooting, but again, you need to understand what your army's strengths and weaknesses are, and what detachments work best for what you currently own. And the rules change for each balanced data slate, so some units will have their time to shine eventually, unless they get thrown into Legends. So it's important to understand how the minis you buy work in your army when you eventually go to the game store using a carrying case from the sponsor of this video, Tabletop Stronghold. Tabletop Stronghold is your one-stop shop for both miniature carrying cases and terrain. If you want your first army to be safe because that cardboard box ain't cutting it anymore, the Mag Case 2.0 protects your miniatures from everything aside from a giant asteroid or the heat death of the universe. So why don't you get yourself a Mag Case 2.0 that comes in multiple sizes? So depending on how unfortunate, lucky you are to own a Horde army nowadays with all of GW's price increases, any of these mag cases will secure your minis to these adjustable trays using the power of magnets that have been blessed by the all-powerful Magnet Wizard. Yes, I'm talking about magnets, the thing that drives me to insanity because I bought this overpriced plastic, so I'm getting my money's worth, God Emperor, damn it. I myself have the Mag Case 2.0 Mini, which is perfect for any Custodes or Dark Angels list that doesn't involve oversized chunks of plastic or resin. So depending on which mag case size you get, the army you build with the help of this video will be safe and secure. Also, if you want to be a massive help to the channel, use my link in the pinned comment or description, and if you want 25% off your next purchase, use code CRAFT25 for 25% off your next order. So thank you Tabletop Stronghold for sponsoring this video. If you want some terrain or a Mag Case 2.0 that ships to pretty much anywhere in the world for free, go to tabletopstronghold.com. Also, this is a good point in the video for you to do your part and do all that good YouTube stuff like subscribing to the channel, along with liking the video and leaving a comment for the almighty YouTube algorithm. Because I really need this video to do well since the last two bombed. Thanks, YouTube. But how do you choose what units to include in your lists? Is it solely based on the rule of cool, or are you a meta slave? Or do you strike that balance of competitive and cool? Okay, so now I'm going to go into the structure of a list and the logic of how I build my army lists, both casual and competitive. And then my good friend Ickbard is going to explain how his competitive Votann list works and how it functions. So in Warhammer, we have 5 categories: HQs or characters, battle line, dedicated transports, elites or other data sheets, and allied units. Characters is pretty straightforward. This is your named characters like the Lion, Azrael, Valerian, Asmodai, Canis Rex, Kitten, and Rowboat Gorilla Man. Characters give the units they attach to, or if they have lone operative, special abilities like improved AP, strength, damage, or movement benefits like advance and charge. Normally, a list will have a few characters depending on your army, and you have to choose one of those characters to be the Warlord, unless the rules state otherwise like Girly Man or the Lion. Next is battle line. These are the basic bitches of your army, like the 3 flavors of Intercessors, Custodian Guard, and Cadian Shock Troops. Some armies will use either some or none depending on the faction, but it's usually good to have 1 to 3 units of battle line because they do get certain benefits and some rules only affect battle line specifically, and also because you might need some dedicated action monkeys. Dedicated transports are for basically what it says, transport vehicles like Impulsors, Razorbacks, Rhinos, Drop Pods, Chimeras, and Tauroxes. These also have limitations for what they can carry, so pay attention to that. And yes, there are other transports like Land Raiders, Gladiators, and others I can't remember, but there are transports outside of dedicated, but they're more expensive points wise. Then we get to other data sheets, or what we like to call elite units, things like Terminators, Leman Russes, Dreadnoughts, Baneblade variants, and many more. These are what most of your lists are going to be filled out with, since they all fulfill certain roles like anti-infantry, anti-tank, melee heavy, shooting heavy, or fast attack. So this is where the rule of cool comes into play, because all the cool fun stuff are usually elite units, like my Astreus, Dreadnoughts, and many Terminators. Then finally, allied units is pretty much self-explanatory, depending on if you're playing Chaos or Loyalist. For Loyalist, you can ally Imperial Agents, Imperial Knights, or Titans, and stop asking. Chaos, it's Chaos Knights, Cult Marines, and Chaos Demons. But for Demons and Cult Marines, they can't be more than 1/4 the points cost of your army. Anyways, now we move on to my logic for army building. So when I want to build a list, I usually go for the all-arounder, which just means jack of all trades. I want my list to be able to do pretty much everything, but also leaning into the strengths of the detachment I choose. Anti-tank? Check. Melee threats? Check. Distraction Carnifexes? Check. Deep strike? Check. Staying power? Check. But as you can probably tell, the best and easiest example of this from the armies I own is Custodes. For anti-tank, everyone knows at this point that the Caladius Grav tanks are our only consistent anti-tank due to the points efficiency, because when it hits like a freight train. Because the Arachnus Blaze Cannon has a 48-inch range, Ballistic Skill 2, 12 Strength, AP -3, D6 plus 2 damage, lethal hits against vehicles and monsters, and it's twin-linked. And the Accelerator Cannon is also good against infantry because you get Strength 10, Damage 3, AP -1, Rapid Fire 4 lethal hits, and twin-linked. Also, did I mention it knows Kung Fu? Melee threats are standard for Custodes. Pretty much all of their units aside from the Sisters of Silence hit like a truck in melee. A Distraction Carnifex is either a Telemon or 2 Custodes Contemptors depending on how I'm feeling. Then Terminators and Venatari Gabagoo are my backline threat. And for staying power, it's Custodes. What else are you gonna expect? 2-up save and 4-up invuln? Oh, feels good, man. But you will notice that this list has a bit of everything except for volume of fire for shooting, and that's because Sagittarium Custodes are and Forge World. And I also don't want to spend $120 or however much Sisters of Silence will cost now with the price increases. My Dark Angels lists are kind of similar but more well-rounded, with an equal amount of shooting and melee, with the Lion or Dreadnoughts being my Distraction Carnifexes, and Space Marines are expected to be more of a jack-of-all-trades army than Custodes, because Space Marines are the jack-of-all-trades army since you get average melee and shooting that hits on 3s, with some elite units getting invuln saves on 4s and saving throws on 2s and 3s depending on if it's Terminators, which is why Space Marines have the widest range of choices if you're playing a Codex compliant chapter. If you're playing non-Codex compliant like Dark Angels, you get access to a bunch of extra cool units like Deathwing Knights, Inner Circle Companions, or Ravenwing Black Knights / Command Squad. Most of my lists may not be that competitive, but that's because I want to use what I think is cool, and I know I'm gonna have fun, which GW is making a lot harder with every balanced data slate and busted codex they release. But next up is Ickbard, and how his competitive Votann list works as an example of a tournament list.
Hello lads and ladies, my name is Ickbard Matthews and I'm here to teach you how to make a fun and competitive Warhammer 40k list. We are going to be using the Need Guard detachment for the Leagues of Votann because we represent Rock and Stone in this household. We are going to be building a list that revolves around the idea of doing different secondaries every turn, which will prevent our opponents from being able to predict what we're going to do easily, and will lean heavily towards action monkeys for this plan. We are running a Brokir Ironmaster, a Call with a command point reduction enhancement, and a Memnir Strategist to give us more yield points to play with our army rules. We have 3 10-man of Hearthkin Warriors with the sustained hits, always hot, never hazardous plasma, and the Magna Rail Rifle because we know what the ladies like. We are running 2 Sagittars and a Capricus Carrier because we want to make our Action Monkey units split in half become even more Action Monkeys. In theory, we'll be making 9 different Action Monkey units, 3 transports, 6 infantry units, really 3 being split into 2. The transports are going to have various scout and have really good anti-vehicle, anti-elite guns on top of that. The infantry can screen and move block to prevent some good turn 1, turn 2 charges. We have 4 big hammers in this list. We have a 6-man of Brokir Thunderkin with the sustained hits to bolt cannons. They're really cool. They strip cover. We have a 10-man Einhir Hearthguard with plasma guns and grenade launchers. They're going to work really well with the Call with a sustained hit and lethal hit combo. Then we have 2 Hecaton Land Fortresses with the conversion beamers, and they hit really hard with damage 4 guns. We have a Hernkin Jaeger unit with a forward deploy being split in half with the Capricus Carrier, giving us scouting forward deploy with transport and having an early screen move blocker with potential anti-infantry, anti-monster weaponry. Now, the little piece that is going to tie this all together are 2 3-mans of Hernkin Pioneers. They also have scout, they have fly, they're very fast for a very slow moving army, and they have uppies. At the end of your opponent's turn, they go up. At the end of your movement phase, they come back down. They will be there to do actions in corners. They will be taking objectives away from our opponents because there's a lot of units that have sticky objective abilities, and we're going to counter that. Did I mention they're also really fast, so they're going to be really, really good for doing a lot of actions. We are going to be move blocking, we are going to be hammering, and we're going to be using expendable units to do actions, become a nuisance in the movement phase, and then try to nuke people on their home objectives or from a flank. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Ickbard. Everyone say thank you, and don't forget to subscribe to his channel. Finally, we have casual lists or meme lists. These are armies you take when you want to do something stupid that should honestly never work in a competitive setting. Think Oops All Custodes jet bikes, and yes, I mean all jet bikes, even the forge-rolled ones. How about Double Acastus Knight list, or Wrath of the First Legion, where you take as many named Dark Angels characters as you can and praying to the God Emperor your opponent doesn't get assassinated. And then there's Pulling a Paul, aka I'm gonna force Centurions to be competitive, so I'm taking 18 of them. But casual army lists aren't just meme lists. There are also armies you test to see what works and what doesn't, because while the list might not seem competitive at first, with enough tweaks it will be. Another use of making a casual list is for teaching games for new players, although with GW increasing the prices constantly, it's making it harder for people to actually get into Warhammer. But I would say casual armies are more focused towards teaching game mechanics to newer players over stomping them into the ground. But yeah, that's Army Building 101. I know this might not have been as in-depth as some of you might have wanted, but I can only do so much within a 2-week upload schedule and the onset of burnout with my past videos doing horribly. So remember, army building is 90% figuring out what works and 10% playing, because while some things might work for you, it might not for others, because we all have our own play styles along with biases towards certain minis. Anyways, thanks for watching the video, and a huge thank you to the Gigas of the Chads, the channel members and Twitch subscribers. So if you too want to be a Giga Chad and help fund these stupid adventures, consider becoming a member of either for access to the member section of the Discord and other things. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, but I have to go make more terrible financial decisions. So I'll see you all in the next video, and remember, when you play Warhammer, being poor is a choice.